From tragic on-set deaths to scorpion attacks and a bizarre Navajo obsession with John Wayne, who wasn't even in the film, this 1965 Western comedy had more drama behind the scenes than on screen. With Ultra Panavision lenses weighing more than bowling balls, a beard-growing contest to hire extras, and Burt Lancaster forced to work for a fraction of his salary, the production was as chaotic as the whiskey-fueled plot itself. Here are the 15 weird facts you didn't know about the Hallelujah Trail. Fact 1. A fatal stunt was kept in the film. On November 13, 1964, tragedy struck the set of the Hallelujah Trail when veteran stuntman Bill Williams lost his life performing what should have been a routine stunt. Williams, an experienced professional who had worked on numerous Western productions throughout his career, was tasked with executing a wagon-over-cliff sequence that required precise timing and coordination. The stunt involved driving a wagon toward a cliff edge, then jumping clear at the last possible moment before the vehicle plummeted over the side. However, something went terribly wrong during the take. Williams failed to jump clear in time and went over the cliff along with the wagon, suffering fatal injuries in the fall. The incident sent shockwaves through the production, halting filming while cast and crew mourned the loss of their colleague. Despite the tragedy surrounding the footage, director John Sturgis and the producers made the controversial decision to keep the scene in the final cut of the movie. This meant that audiences watching the Hallelujah Trail in theaters were unknowingly viewing the last moments of Bill Williams' life captured on film. The decision to retain the footage raises uncomfortable questions about the ethics of using material obtained at such a devastating human cost. In the era before extensive digital effects and computer-generated imagery, filmmakers often faced difficult choices about whether to reshoot dangerous sequences or use the footage they had already captured. The fact that Williams' fatal stunt remains in the movie serves as a sobering reminder of the real dangers stunt performers faced during Hollywood's golden age, when safety protocols were far less stringent than modern standards require. Fact 2. Scorpion attack ended actor's debut. Actor John Moya arrived on the New Mexico set of the Hallelujah Trail with high hopes and significant industry buzz surrounding his involvement in the production. Moya had been publicly billed as the protege of George Maharis, the star of the hit television series Route 66, which gave the young actor considerable credibility and raised expectations for his performance. The role in the Hallelujah Trail was meant to be Moya's feature film debut, representing a crucial stepping stone from television work to major motion pictures. However, his participation in the movie ended almost as soon as it began in the most unexpected and unfortunate way possible. On his very first day of shooting on location in the rugged terrain near Gallup, New Mexico, Moya was stung by a scorpion. The desert landscape where the production was filming provided ideal habitat for these venomous arachnids, which often hide under rocks, in boots, or within clothing left on the ground. The sting proved serious enough that Moya required immediate hospitalization and was unable to return to the production. What should have been the launch of a promising film career instead became a bizarre footnote in Hollywood history, with Moya's debut derailed by an encounter with desert wildlife. The incident highlights the unpredictable hazards of location shooting in remote areas, where cast and crew faced not only the physical demands of production, but also the dangers posed by the natural environment. For Moya, the scorpion attack represented a cruel twist of fate that prevented him from seizing what might have been a career-defining opportunity, leaving audiences to wonder what might have been had he been able to complete his scenes. Fact 3. Lancaster's $600,000 pay-cut punishment. Burt Lancaster entered production on the Hallelujah Trail under highly unusual and financially punishing circumstances that stemmed from troubles at his own production company. Lancaster had co-founded Hecht Hill Lancaster Productions, which had produced several successful films throughout the late 1950s. However, the company had recently experienced massive cost overruns on multiple projects, leaving it deeply in debt to United Artists, the studio that had financed and distributed their films. United Artists, frustrated by the financial losses and determined to recoup some of their investment, imposed harsh terms on Lancaster personally. The studio forced the actor to commit to making 4 films for them at drastically reduced rates as a form of compensation for the money his production company had lost. Under normal circumstances, Lancaster commanded a substantial salary of $750,000 per picture, reflecting his status as one of Hollywood's biggest stars. For these 4 contractually obligated films, however, United Artists slashed his fee to just $150,000 per picture. This represented a staggering $600,000 pay cut for each movie, meaning Lancaster was essentially working for 1/5 of his usual rate. The Hallelujah Trail became one of these 4 films that Lancaster was compelled to make under these unfavorable terms. While he delivered his characteristic professional performance as Cavalry Officer Colonel Thaddeus Gearhart, Lancaster was doing so while earning far less than his market value would typically command, effectively subsidizing United Artists' losses from his failed production ventures with his own labor at bargain rates. Fact 4. Worst rainstorm in 50 years soars. The production of the Hallelujah Trail chose the New Mexico landscape near Gallup for its authentic western vistas and typically dry, sunny climate that made it ideal for extended outdoor filming. However, nature had other plans for the cast and crew. During the location shoot, the region was struck by what locals confirmed was the heaviest rainfall the area had experienced in half a century. The deluge transformed the carefully planned production into a waterlogged nightmare as torrential rains pounded the makeshift film encampment day after day. The force of the storm proved devastating to the production infrastructure, washing away tents that housed equipment and provided shelter for crew members. Carefully constructed sets were damaged or destroyed entirely by the rushing water, and valuable props were swept away in the flooding. The costume department faced particular challenges as period clothing became soaked and muddy, requiring extensive cleaning and, in some cases, complete replacement. The downpour turned dirt roads into impassable rivers of mud, making it impossible to move heavy equipment or transport cast and crew to filming locations. With outdoor scenes completely out of the question and no adequate indoor facilities available to continue production, director John Sturgis had no choice but to halt filming entirely. The delay stretched on for weeks as the production team waited for the weather to clear and then worked frantically to rebuild damaged sets, replace lost equipment, and dry out the location. The unexpected weather catastrophe added significant costs to an already expensive production and contributed to the budget overruns that would plague the film. For a Western comedy that featured a plot revolving around transporting whiskey across dry territory, the irony of being shut down by excessive water was not lost on anyone involved. Fact 5. Ultra Panavision lenses weighed more than bowling balls. The Hallelujah Trail was shot using one of the most technically ambitious and physically demanding film formats ever created, Ultra Panavision 70mm. This specialized cinematographic system utilized massive anamorphic lenses that compressed an extremely wide field of view onto 70mm film stock, which would then be projected through corresponding lenses to create an extraordinarily wide image on theater screens. The aspect ratio achieved by this process was 2.76:1, meaning the image was nearly 3 times as wide as it was tall, creating an immersive panoramic effect perfect for capturing the sweeping western landscapes. However, this visual grandeur came at a significant physical cost to the camera operators and crew. Each of the Ultra Panavision anamorphic lenses weighed more than 16 pounds, which is heavier than a standard bowling ball. These massive pieces of optical equipment had to be mounted on equally substantial camera rigs, making the entire apparatus extraordinarily heavy and difficult to maneuver. camera operators faced considerable physical strain throughout. The production, wrestling with equipment that weighed far more than standard Hollywood cameras of the era. The weight and bulk of the system also limited the types of shots that could be achieved, making handheld camera work virtually impossible and requiring elaborate mounting systems for any camera movement. Despite these challenges, the technical specifications made the Hallelujah Trail part of an extremely exclusive group, as it became one of only 10 films ever produced using the Ultra Panavision 70 format. The others included classics like Ben-Hur and Mutiny on the Bounty, placing this Western comedy in the company of Hollywood's most technically ambitious productions, even if the final film didn't achieve the same critical or commercial success. Fact 6. Beard growing contest for background actors. The producers of the Hallelujah Trail needed to cast hundreds of background actors to populate the various groups featured in the film, including cavalry soldiers, frontier settlers, and rugged miners. Rather than simply placing casting calls and hoping for the best, the Mirish Corporation, which produced the film, devised an innovative community engagement strategy that would simultaneously build local enthusiasm for the production and identify suitable extras who already possessed the authentic period look the film required. The company provided funding to sponsor a beard-growing contest organized and run by the Gallup Lions Club, a prominent civic organization in the New Mexico town where much of the filming would take place. The contest encouraged local men to grow out their facial hair in the months leading up to production, with winners to be selected based on the length, fullness, and overall quality of their beards. The incentive for participants went beyond simple prizes, as the producers announced their intention to hire the contest winners as background actors in the film. This meant that men with the most impressive beards would have the opportunity to appear in a major Hollywood production while earning daily extra wages. The strategy proved remarkably effective on multiple levels. It generated significant buzz and excitement throughout the Gallup community about the upcoming film production, ensuring that locals felt invested in the project's success. It also solved a practical casting problem by pre-selecting men who already had the authentic period facial hair that costume and makeup departments would otherwise have had to create using time-consuming and expensive fake beards and mustaches. The beard-growing contest became a memorable part of the film's legacy in Gallup, representing a clever bit of grassroots marketing that brought together Hollywood production needs and small-town community building. Fact 7. Shirley MacLaine almost starred. Instead, before Lee Remick was cast as Cora Templeton Massingale, the temperance leader who becomes romantically entangled with Burt Lancaster's cavalry colonel, the producers had their sights set on another major Hollywood star for the role. Shirley MacLaine, fresh off acclaimed performances in films like The Apartment and Irma la Douce, was the original choice to play the strong-willed woman leading a wagon train full of temperance advocates across the frontier. MacLaine possessed exactly the combination of comedic timing, dramatic ability, and strong screen presence that the role demanded. Her proven chemistry with male co-stars and her ability to hold her own opposite major leading men made her seem like the perfect match for a character who needed to stand toe-to-toe with Lancaster's commanding officer throughout the film. The producers approached MacLaine about the part, and she expressed genuine interest in the project, recognizing the potential for a meaty role that would allow her to showcase both her dramatic and comedic talents in a big-budget Western comedy. However, the timing simply didn't work out in the production's favor. MacLaine was already committed to other film projects with conflicting shooting schedules, making it impossible for her to accept the role in the Hallelujah Trail, no matter how appealing the part might have been. With MacLaine unavailable due to these scheduling conflicts, the producers moved on to consider other actresses for the temperance leader role. Lee Remick ultimately won the part and delivered a strong performance, but the film industry was left to speculate about how different the movie might have been with MacLaine's particular brand of charm and comedic sensibility, bringing Cora Templeton Massingale to life. The near casting represents one of those tantalizing what-if moments in Hollywood history where scheduling quirks altered the final composition of a major production. Fact 8. Doris Day also wanted the role. The casting process for the female lead in the Hallelujah Trail attracted interest from multiple major Hollywood stars, with the role of temperance leader Cora Templeton Massingale proving particularly appealing to actresses looking for substantial parts in big-budget productions. According to screenwriter John Gay, who adapted the script from the novel by Bill Gulick, another major star expressed strong interest in playing the part: Doris Day. At the time, Day was one of Hollywood's biggest box office draws, having built her career on a combination of musical comedies and romantic films that showcased her wholesome image and considerable comedic talents. Her interest in the Hallelujah Trail represented something of a departure from her typical roles, as Westerns were not generally part of her filmography. The temperance leader character would have allowed Day to play against type to some degree, portraying a strong-willed frontier woman rather than her usual urban romantic comedy roles. Day's involvement would have brought a different energy to the film, as her established screen persona and fan base would have shifted audience expectations and potentially altered the movie's commercial prospects. Her musical background might have even opened possibilities for incorporating songs into the production, though the final film featured only Elmer Bernstein's instrumental score. However, despite Day's expressed interest in the role, she ultimately did not join the production. Whether she withdrew from consideration, was passed over by the producers, or faced scheduling conflicts similar to those that prevented Shirley MacLaine from taking the part remains unclear from available sources. What is certain is that Lee Remick ultimately secured the role, bringing her own dramatic strengths to the character. The fact that both Shirley MacLaine and Doris Day were in the mix for the same part demonstrates how desirable the role was perceived to be within the industry. Fact 9. Budget ballooned $2.5 million. When the Hallelujah Trail entered pre-production, the Mirish Corporation and United Artists established an initial budget of $4.5 million for the film, a substantial sum that reflected the ambitious scope of the production, with its large cast, extensive location shooting, and technical demands of Ultra Panavision 70 cinematography. However, as production progressed, the actual costs spiraled far beyond these original projections. By the time filming wrapped and post-production was completed, the total production budget had exploded to approximately $7 million. This represented cost overruns of roughly $1.5 million beyond the planned budget, a significant financial problem for the studio and producers. The budget inflation stemmed from multiple factors that plagued the production. The fatal stunt accident that killed Bill Williams halted filming and required additional safety measures and reshoots. The unprecedented rainstorms that washed away sets and equipment necessitated expensive rebuilding efforts and extended the shooting schedule by weeks. The technical challenges of working with the massive Ultra Panavision equipment slowed down production and increased labor costs. Location shooting in remote New Mexico areas proved more expensive than anticipated, and the large number of extras and animals required for various scenes added daily costs that accumulated over the extended production period. But the financial pain didn't stop with the $7 million production budget. United Artists also spent an additional $3.5 million on prints and advertising to market the film to audiences, bringing the total investment in the movie to $10.5 million. This massive expenditure meant the film needed to be a significant commercial success just to break even, requiring strong box office performance that unfortunately never materialized, turning the Hallelujah Trail into a financial disappointment that lost money for the studio. Fact 10. Animated charts created mockumentary style. The Hallelujah Trail employed an unusual and sophisticated, narrative device that set it apart from typical Western films of the era and created a unique comedic tone that elevated the material beyond straightforward slapstick. Throughout the movie, the action is periodically interrupted by animated strategic charts and maps that display the positions and movements of the various groups involved in the convoluted plot. These charts, rendered in a pseudo-military style, complete with arrows, symbols, and geographical markers, track the cavalry soldiers, the temperance wagon train, the miners desperately awaiting their whiskey shipment, and the Native Americans observing the chaos with bemused interest. Accompanying these animated sequences is an unbilled narrator who provides tongue-in-cheek commentary on the unfolding situation, explaining the strategic positions and motivations of each group with mock seriousness that undercuts the absurdity of the circumstances. The narrator was voiced by John Daner, a prolific character actor with a distinctive authoritative voice, though he received no screen credit for his contribution. This documentary-style framing device created what would today be recognized as a mockumentary approach, treating the ridiculous whiskey transportation crisis with the gravitas typically reserved for actual military campaigns or historical documentaries. The technique was remarkably ahead of its time for 1965, predating the modern mockumentary genre by decades. Few westerns of the era attempted anything similar, with most sticking to conventional narrative structures without self-aware commentary. The animated charts and narrator gave the Hallelujah Trail a distinctive metatextual quality that suggested the filmmakers were aware of the genre conventions they were both embracing and gently satirizing, creating layers of humor that went beyond the physical comedy and character interactions happening in the actual scenes. Fact 11. Film, originally 16 minutes longer. When director John Sturges delivered his initial cut of the Hallelujah Trail, the film ran for an epic 181 minutes, making it just over 3 hours long. This extended runtime reflected Sturges's ambitious vision for the material and his démon to fully develop the multiple storylines, large ensemble cast, and elaborate set pieces that the production had captured. However, before the film's general release, the studio arranged test screenings in Minneapolis and Detroit to gauge audience reactions and identify potential problems with the cut. The response from these preview audiences proved troubling for the filmmakers and studio executives. Viewers expressed frustration with the film's length, with many feeling that the pacing dragged and that the comedy wore thin over such an extended runtime. The test screening cards and exit interviews made it clear that significant trimming would be necessary to make the film more commercially viable and audience-friendly. Based on this feedback, Sturges and the editors went back to work, ultimately cutting 16 minutes from the film to bring it down to a final theatrical runtime of 165 minutes, or 2 hours and 45 minutes. The trimmed material presumably included extended dialogue scenes, additional comedic bits that didn't land as intended, and possibly entire subplots or character moments that were deemed expendable. Despite these substantial cuts aimed at tightening the pace and improving audience satisfaction, the film's length remained a major point of criticism when it finally opened in theaters. Reviewers consistently complained that even at 165 minutes, the Hallelujah Trail still felt too long and bloated, with many suggesting that even more aggressive editing would have benefited the final product. The length issue contributed to the film's poor critical reception and disappointing box office performance. Fact 12. Crushed by Cat Ballou's success. The Hallelujah Trail faced terrible timing in its theatrical release, arriving in cinemas during 1965, the same year that saw another Western comedy capture the public imagination and critical acclaim. Cat Ballou, starring Jane Fonda and Lee Marvin, had opened earlier in the year to enthusiastic audiences and strong reviews, with Marvin's dual performance earning him the Academy Award for Best Actor. The film successfully blended Western tropes with comedy in a way that felt fresh and entertaining, becoming a genuine hit that exceeded all commercial expectations. By the time the Hallelujah Trail reached theaters later that same year, the Western comedy subgenre had essentially been exhausted in the minds of both critics and general audiences. Movie reviewers explicitly made the comparison between the two films, and the Hallelujah Trail suffered greatly by association. Critics posed variations of the same damning question: how many Western spoofs do audiences want to see in one year? The general consensus was that audiences had already gotten their fill of genre-bending Western humor with Cat Ballou, leaving no appetite or enthusiasm for another entry in the same vein so soon afterward. This created a perception problem that the Hallelujah Trail could never overcome, regardless of its own merits or the differences in approach between the two films. Where Cat Ballou had benefited from novelty and the element of surprise, the Hallelujah Trail was dismissed as derivative and redundant before audiences even gave it a fair chance. The unfortunate timing meant that what might have been received as a refreshing take on Western conventions in a different year instead became a victim of genre fatigue, with the film's commercial failure attributed in large part to simply arriving at the wrong moment in cinema history when audiences had already moved on from Western comedies. Fact 13. Over 100 Navajo extras hired. The production of the Hallelujah Trail had a significant economic impact on the Gallup, New Mexico area, with the filmmakers making a concerted effort to employ local residents and inject money into the regional economy. According to production records, local spending by the film production reached an impressive $1,142,640. A substantial sum that benefited local businesses, hotels, restaurants, and residents throughout the extended shooting period. A major component of this local investment involved hiring members of the Navajo Nation as background actors for various scenes in the film. Upward of 100 Navajo people were employed as extras, providing authentic period atmosphere while simultaneously creating employment opportunities for community members. The production didn't simply hire Navajo extras and expect them to navigate the Hollywood production process on their own. Recognizing the potential for communication barriers and cultural differences, the filmmakers brought on Navajo translator Gilbert Brown to serve as a liaison between the Navajo cast members and the predominantly Anglo film crew. Brown's role quickly expanded beyond simple translation duties as his value to the production became apparent. His understanding of both cultures, his ability to facilitate smooth communication, and his organizational skills impressed the filmmakers so much that Brown was eventually promoted to an assistant director position, giving him genuine authority and responsibility in managing aspects of the production. This represented a rare opportunity for a Native American to hold a significant behind-the-scenes role in a major Hollywood production during an era when such positions were almost exclusively held by white men. The extensive hiring of Navajo extras in Brown's promotion demonstrated a level of community integration that went beyond mere tokenism, creating meaningful economic benefits and career opportunities. Fact 14. Navajo men confused it with John Wayne. One of the most peculiar legacies of the Hallelujah Trail involves a case of mistaken identity that has persisted in the collective memory of some who participated in the production. Despite the fact that John Wayne never appeared in the film in any capacity, many of the Navajo men who worked as background actors became fascinated with the legendary Western star and somehow associated him with the production and the Gallup filming locations. This confusion appears to have stemmed from several factors. Wayne was the most recognizable and iconic Western film star of the era, having appeared in dozens of classic Westerns and becoming virtually synonymous with the genre in the public imagination. For Navajo extras who may not have been deeply familiar with Hollywood productions or other actors, Wayne represented the archetypal Western movie star, and his larger-than-life persona seems to have merged in their minds with their experience working on a major Western production. Additionally, many Western film had indeed shot in the Gallup area over the years, and it's entirely possible that Wayne had filmed in the region for other productions, creating a conflation of different movie shoots into a single, remembered experience. The phenomenon speaks to Wayne's overwhelming cultural presence during this period, where his image and persona transcended individual films to become representative of the Western genre as a whole. For the Navajo men who participated in the Hallelujah Trail, the experience of being in a big Hollywood Western became inseparable from their associations with John Wayne, even though the actual star of their film was Burt Lancaster. This curious collective false memory has become part of the film's unusual legacy, adding another layer of strangeness to a production that was already marked by tragedy, bizarre incidents, and unexpected complications. Fact 15. Title changed to avoid confusion. The film that eventually became known as the Hallelujah Trail didn't start out with that name during its development and pre-production phases. The original working title for the project was The Hallelujah Train, which made logical sense given that the plot involves various groups attempting to intercept or protect a wagon train carrying a precious cargo of whiskey across the frontier. However, as the film moved closer to its release date, United Artists executives recognized a potentially serious marketing problem on the horizon. The studio was preparing to release another major production that also starred Burt Lancaster in the lead role, a thriller called The Train, directed by John Frankenheimer. That film, which had been released in 1964, involved Lancaster's character working with the French resistance to prevent the Nazis from stealing priceless art treasures by train during World War II. United Artists became concerned that having two Burt Lancaster films with such similar titles would create confusion among moviegoers and potentially hurt both films' box office performance. Audiences might mistakenly believe they had already seen the Hallelujah Train when they had actually seen the train, or vice versa, leading them to skip what they perceived as a repeat viewing. Marketing materials and advertising campaigns would also suffer from the similar naming, with newspaper listings and marquees potentially causing mix-ups. To avoid this problem, the studio made the decision to change the Western comedy's title from the Hallelujah Train to the Hallelujah Trail. The single-word substitution was minimal but sufficient to create clear differentiation between the two films while maintaining the original spirit and meaning of the title. The change represents a practical bit of studio decision-making aimed at protecting their investments and ensuring audiences could easily distinguish between their releases.